Welcome to the second part of my series on electrolytes. Electrolytes are minerals in your body that have an electric charge. They are used for a variety of functions for your muscles, nerves, and for your fluid and pH balance. In the first video, I covered potassium and its relationship to sodium, so I figured it would be best to talk about the big bad sodium next. I would have to say that sodium is probably one of the top 5 most demonized nutrients, so this should be a pretty fun topic to discuss. I will go over why sodium is so important for our health and how it's gotten such a bad reputation lately. I will also go over some of the differences between the salts that you may find in your grocery store, everything from table salt to pink Himalayan salt and some of the other sea salts. Now, a lot of times salt is referred to as sodium and vice versa. And that's because salt is mainly composed of just sodium and chloride. So even though we realize there are other elements to salt than just sodium, it's pretty safe to generally link the two terms as similar things. Salt was a highly valued currency back in ancient times. Yeah, it wasn't just a commodity back then, it was an actual currency for many societies. Many wars were actually fought over salt, and the Latin word salarium meant salt money. Yeah, see the connection? That's how important the substance was to everyone at the time. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, yeah, they didn't have refrigerators back in that time, so salt needed to be their main preservation mechanism. And while that is a good point, there still were many other reasons for salt being such a big deal, like staying hydrated for one. Sodium affects the fluid balance all throughout our body, mainly regulating blood volume. It is just essential for life as breathing oxygen is. Recent research has also suggested that eating salt can reduce the risk of infection and kill harmful bacteria. This is due to it boosting classical macrophage activation. Like I stated in my video on potassium, sodium is not the problem. The imbalances are the problem. Sodium does not store up in your body if everything is functioning properly, so we need to consume sodium every day. The tough question is knowing how much do you personally need. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams per day, but it's not quite that simple. Everyone sweats at different rates, and the amount of sodium lost in just 1 hour of vigorous activity can range from 200 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams. So there goes most of your daily sodium intake in just 1 hour if you are one of those heavy sweaters. Now, I realize many people aren't physically active anymore, and that, along with the high salt, low potassium diet, is a big reason for some of the uptick in hypertension and stroke. These people really need to address their unhealthy habits instead of latching on to this false notion of some evil nutrient being out there called sodium that's destroying their health. And many times, improving your sodium to potassium ratio just by adding more potassium into your diet greatly improves things just by itself. And if you can avoid these processed meats and the unnaturally high sodium foods, you should be just fine. If you are an athlete training every day, you need more than that recommended limit. The amount will depend on your own rate of sweat. So what is the best type of salt to buy at the grocery store? Well, there's sodium chloride, better known as table salt. It's pretty obvious what that contains. However, table salt is usually heavily refined and mixed with anti-caking agents to prevent clumping. It should also come fortified with about 45 micrograms of iodine. And iodine is an extremely important nutrient, especially with all the exposure we have to the many other halogens we come in contact in our everyday lives. That is a video for another time, though. Then we have sea salt. This became a pretty big fad in the health community a little while back. And it is great because it does contain many trace minerals just naturally. But unfortunately, most brands do not have much iodine because it's not added to the salt like it is to your everyday table salts. There are, however, a few brands that provide iodized sea salt, like this one here. This is my preferred salt for cooking and for adding to my foods. And finally, we have pink Himalayan salt. Some people believe this is the best salt because it has the best mineral content. Well, that's not quite entirely true. This salt is still 98% sodium chloride and does have 2% trace minerals, a lot like sea salt does. But Himalayan salt is also far less artificial and does usually not contain any additives. It does have the drawback of very little iodine content, though. Many people say the salt tastes the best, and I may have to agree with that. So there's the rundown on sodium. It's a vitally important mineral, but like with most things, too much can eventually lead to problems, and so can too little. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, smash that like button, and stay well, everyone.